say that, hoping that would become the live. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you might be in the world. And I've not got the screen big enough to add whoever's just joined in down there. Here we go. Here's Ian. There we go. Right. Hello. Yes. Oh, that was very unprofessional as ever. Well, where should we start? There's only one. Well, first of all, we'll say congratulations to Richard and then forget talking to him, because in the room we've got the man who has the most contentious thing in the drone world. And of course, I'm not talking about Bruce just for once, because it is normally Bruce. But Jack, one half of Chrome's Domes and Drones, has one of those things. And what is it? Really, what is it? First, before, and no doubt there's going to be some questions from the audience. For sure. Can you unpack how that arrived in your life? How come you are the only YouTuber with one of those?
That is a great question. I don't have the best answer, but I can tell you how I ended up with it. Right. So I get emails from companies that I've never heard of all the time. They say, hey, will you review this drone or this YouTube or this Bluetooth light bulb or whatever? You know, most of the time I ignore most of the emails, but I got this one from Specta and it said, hey, will you review this drone? It's, you know, they talked about the 48 megapixel camera, the 46-minute flight time, the two cameras on it with the tele lens. And I thought, well, this is the Air 3. There's no way this company's making this drone that they're talking about. So I said, yes, send me this drone. I will review it, fully expecting it to show up and be, you know, a Temu drone with a 480p camera and brush motors or whatever. And then it showed up in this box. And it was this. Yeah. Well, this is it actually. And you know, it's obviously the very, very similar to the DJI Air 3. And as, you know, I test it, it becomes more and more apparent that that is, in fact, what this drone is. This is the DJI Air 3 with some very small differences.
So you're happy to say that, and you've not. Did they? Hopefully, it costs about the same as a Mini. No, because it's a Johnny. It's an Air 3, but I think they've got a smaller one coming. But they didn't give you restrictions as to what you could say. Oh, well, there's a white box.
That's the Mini one, which they did tell me they didn't want me to release because they're still working on their website and they wanted that to be finished. I can actually fly the Mini Specta yet because I don't have an app because it flies with this remote. But yeah, no, they didn't give me any restrictions or really much like direction. In fact, like I've asked them a ton of questions that they've just haven't answered. So it's kind of been really bizarre, right? So like this one here, this is actually a 1200 activated. So they sent me a second one, which is what I've been flying. Which is actually kind of nice because now I have two batteries. You know, I have a bunch of Air 3 batteries because I have an Air 3, but they don't work. And vice versa. Okay. I can't fly, you know, my Air 3 on the Specta battery. So, yeah.
So can you see? Are you gonna? Is Chris gonna take that one that doesn't fly apart then to look at the boards?
He already did actually. And I posted that video not on our YouTube. It's gonna come out on our YouTube channel. I'll make it go live tomorrow, but I threw it on our website. So if people want to see the insides of this drone, and I don't want to ruin it, but it's the same on the inside as it is on the outside. It's very much a DJI Air 3.
Wow. It's quite a thing.
It just really is.
It's quite a thing. Now, Ian, have you put anything up on your site of pictures yet? I've forgotten what it's called, but I put a link on it on SES News. And I've forgotten what it's called.
No, actually, and I need to upload the stuff from the weekend onto there. Actually, I'll do that in a minute. I've got Specta teardown images coming sort of in hand now. I just need to deal with them and have a look at them. But yeah, look, what we have here is 2 drones, 3 drones with the green thing. We'll talk about that a bit more in a minute. But look, these are from our perspective, and this is the right wording to use, these are manufactured as DJI products. They contain components that are and have only ever been seen in DJI products. And something very specific about that is this, the P1 chipset. So DJI OcuSync is their crown jewels. That is their, camera drones you can make. You can get the sensors, you can get the motors, you can get the screens for the remote controllers. It's all commodity parts. What isn't is certain specific components that are in the DJI products. So the big one, and I've spoke about this a lot in the past, is the P1 chipset, which is their OcuSync. We firmly believe they actually designed the chipset, and that is in all of these drones as well. And that tells us one thing, that no one can just get that. That's not off the shelf. You can't go finding it. DJI have to give that to you. We also know that DJI is making the firmware. Now, this has not been admitted anywhere, but we know that is a fact. The firmware is hosted on DJI servers. Guys who have had access to places that DJI probably wouldn't like have already torn it apart and looked and gone, yeah, look, DJI, regardless if they admit it or not, is supporting this release in some way. It also seems quite minimal is the term I'll use. And Jack mentioned something interesting. He's struggling with answers. And what I suspect that is the distributor is the wording I will use, is they probably don't know a lot themselves. And that there's only so much they can say. What I think is a bit disappointing is they are being disingenuous in their comments, specifically that we are an entirely new drone company. It has nothing to do with any other drone company. That's frankly bullshit, as we can see, and there's no other way of saying it other than that. But it is interesting. It's the first time we've ever seen a DJI product that we didn't know was an official agreement. There is only one other, that is the Cadex Vista. For those who are into FPV, the Vista was sold by Cadex largely because it doesn't fully conform to some requirements, so DJI couldn't sell it under their own brand. Other than that, DJI have never done this white labeling before. That's probably the right term to use.
The Rise Telos, kind of an example.
Yes.
They were very upfront, like that was their product, but it was definitely a split. Yeah. So it's not totally a new thing, but this to this level absolutely is different.
Yeah, the Telo was a team you had the team that split off to the side based out of the RoboMaster project. In fact, those guys were part of the RoboMaster team, and then they split off and created the Telo. And as you say, it even had their name on the top of it, didn't it? And it, as you say, they've done stuff in the past, but they've been very open. We have the Cadex Vista, a DJI product sold under the Cadex brand, all very clear. You had the Telo. This is murkier, is the term probably to use, because what's weird is you've got a company that doesn't have a website. They don't have anything other than an email address, yet they have a drone for sale on Amazon. It's quite bizarre, really, isn't it?
It is. And the more I think about it, the more I feel like this shouldn't be in my hands yet. Like I think someone said this to me that probably shouldn't have. It's coming, right? And I do think that the Spectre drone, right? Because this mini one tells I think a little bit more of the tale than actually the Air 3 does. It's so this, right? This is a configuration. You get this and the RC2 with the remote screen, and it's $100 more than the Air 3, right? So is it cheaper? Not really, but kind of, because that's the package I think most people probably want but can't get from DJI. But as they release the mini drone, right, this drone's going to be, I don't know, but I'm going to guess $300 or less. And that's the market where, lots of people want to buy drones. And that's like the entry point. And, the mini drones from DJI at that price point are really good. Really good for beginners, for people that, I just need something to take out on vacation with me and shoot at the lake or whatever. You're going to get really good pictures and images out of that $300 drone versus like something you're going to buy on Amazon, from Holy Stone or Roku or whatever. So I think that what they're trying to do is create that lower tier drone that can make some sales up that DJI is maybe missing out on. Maybe people don't want to buy from DJI because they hear, the ban coming, or, it's this horrible company, or some people just don't like the big manufacturer, the top dog. Some people just want something different. I don't know.
Yeah, it's amazing. And so but it's a tale of two halves, or it's a game of two halves, isn't it? Because we see this one and the smaller version, and then we see the green one, which on the face of it, it's two completely different things.
Different market.
Well, yes, yeah, absolutely. But it's like, I don't know, Bob, you go off and do that one. Dave, you go off and do that one. You set up a shell company like this. You set up a shell company like that. I mean, are they coming out of the same thing, or is it just a coincidence that they both seem to have gone through the FCC at about the same time, and they're completely separate? Yeah, I don't know. What's your thoughts on the green one, Ian? Or in fact, Jack? Sorry, I'm sorry, Jack, has been rude.
I think it's kind of the same thing, right? So here in the US, there are many agencies, right, that want to get their hands, but cannot, because DJI specifically is a banned product in certain municipalities, right? So if I wanted to say, I don't know, a thermal drone, I wouldn't care if it was green. If I can get my hands on it, right, it's the best package, right, in terms of bang for your buck for a thermal drone that you can get, right? So why not make another one, right? I don't know where that company is based out of. Is that shell company?
That's shell Delaware, isn't it?
Delaware. Yeah, that's right. So
it's there's tax advantages to that, isn't there?
In the United States, yeah, sure. I think Delaware has more LLCs or corporations than any other state, but yeah, then it's a U.S. based company, right? Like Exo Drones was once upon a time. So it's this interesting game. So even if this drone might get banned eventually, it certainly would skirt the rules for some people for some period of time. I think maybe that's part of the game. Yeah. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
it's clear that if it's this, they're clearly worried. Because what's odd about it is they've never really done anything about the possible bans, the noise. If it is because of that, they are, for them to go this far, they are clearly worried that it's having an effect now.
Or they're just covering their bases. Yeah. Right. So why not see if they can get some inroads just in case? I think that I mean, listen, if I was running a business, I think that would be wise. I have all of this inventory that, I need to clear. Why not send it to another company? I'll make a few dollars selling my inventory, and you can resell it, right? They're just, that's one that, if nothing else, they're covering their bases, and, they take a smaller profit on the extra inventory that they have, and they let somebody else sell it for them, basically. Who knows?
And is there any hint on yours? Actually, it's the inside one that's got the dreadful pictures that you pointed out in your stream, Ian. Is there any hint that yours is actually made in Malaysia, and the boxes or anything, and in the actual physical stuff?
Let's see. Made in Malaysia. It says on my tag here.
It says it on the tag, yeah.
They all have said it. Yeah.
I know they have. I know. Jack's actually got one. That's the difference. So the tags on all these FCC things can say whatever they like, can't they?
This remote actually says made in Hong Kong. No. The company's Hong Kong, made in China.
Okay.
That's interesting. Okay.
That is interesting. I was reading a little bit today about, because this Spectre company is based in Hong Kong, which I know is in China, but for years we treated Hong Kong as its own entity, and then in 2019 I know that changed, but this also says made
Britain, old boy, Britain, Britain. It was right. England,
well, it was until like 97 or something, but I think 2 years ago the World Trade Organization said that we can't say that if something is made in Hong Kong that it's made in China. We have to say that it's made in Hong Kong. I don't know. It was just a couple. I read 2 articles today on the internet. Okay. So it must be true, right? Because it's on the internet. But I don't know. There's something there. Maybe not.
And Ian pointed out in his stream last night, it's rather delightful how how they've just painted the green one, and how they hacked into the arm to get at that sensor as well. So the green one is interesting, and of course, coming up the back end of next month is the AUVSI show. So I wonder if these aren't going to be pulled out by a company as their way forward to whatever they need to do. Look, we've had a licensing agreement. We've made sure they weren't made in China, etc., etc., etc. That's this green one. The one you've got, Jack, I don't know, or the ones you've got, I don't know what the story there is.
Well, there are less regulations for guys like me to fly in the United States than there are for companies that would use a thermal drone, right? So I'm not a police officer. I just teach high school kids.
Well, do you think that's why they chose you then? Get the teacher.
I don't think they know what I do.
Fair enough. Surely, well, you've done very well. Oh, look, Ian's turned away and he's advertising his chair, and he's. Oh,
sorry, I'm just I'm monitoring a 3D print that's going on at the same time because I'm having some problems. So, yeah, I think it's rather interesting. The whole thing, look, in the end, we now know what it is. We now know where they're from. From a consumer point of view, would I buy it? Probably no. Not with the warranty situation, not with the fact you can't get key refresh. If you look at what DJI does do, what they're very good at is they have an ecosystem. They have these days some of the best warranty support in the market. And I don't mean that in drones. I mean, period. DJI have really upped their game. I remember I've been around since 2000 how long now, Gary? 12, 13. We've all been rattling around longer than doing this, I mean, let alone the older stuff. And, there were times where DJI didn't have warranty. Today, they are right up there with the very best companies in the world. If you have a problem, a lot of the time they'll even fix it out of warranty for free. You still see posts with people saying that every day. Spectre, if it's the same product, okay, as Jack rightly said, it might give some outs for people who are doing stuff where the DJI name is a problem. I'd still buy the DJI if that wasn't the case. That's the reality.
Yeah, it's hard, it's hard for me to recommend this drone. It's $1,200, and for that reason, Amazon actually is great in terms of reviews or returns and stuff. So, there is some of that, from the American consumer point of view, I can buy that on Amazon, but I could also buy a DJI from Amazon, right? So there's, that's kind of a wash. Their website or their on the Amazon page, I think it's a 1-year warranty, but again, it's untested, and who knows, and is it covered by DJI? But the Mini, that's a different story, right? If the Mini flies and it flies as well as a DJI Mini and it's less than $300, then I would recommend that thing all day to people. That is a drone, because otherwise what are they're buying a C-Fly Mini or a Fimi Mini or Potenzic Mini. They're fine, they're okay, but they're also $300. And if this one's got the DJI guts inside of it, I would tell people to buy that one. And if the Spectre thing keeps up, and in a year, maybe I'll be telling people to buy the Air Spectre Air, because it comes with the Spectre RC, not the DJI RC2.
It's going to be interesting to see how if DJI decide to cannibalize themselves with that Mini. That's the really interesting one. If they were all, if you think that if that Air was $300 cheaper, $200 cheaper, it would be a no-brainer with the Amazon protection as well. You'd sit here. But the only thing to concern about is then future software updates. Again, DJI these days are very good at updating their firmware, new features down the line. That's where you're going to see differentiation appear. With white label products, you'll probably get an initial firmware release that works mostly, and then you're going to be left with it as it is. But if it's cheaper, then there is a potential benefit. Where it doesn't make sense is when it's the same price, and that's going to be the interesting one for the Mini.
They're too close. Well, the Air is too close, and I don't think DJI wants to sell a $300 drone. I don't think they do. They moved off the Air 2 SE pretty quick. The Mini 3 is hard to find. They want that Mini 4 Pro to be their entry level drone. It's a great drone, but it's more than most people need.
Well, do you think they are stepping in then? Go on, live unboxing. Do you think they are stepping in to the other to wipe out the lower end completely? Just they would wipe out the Fumis and all the other. They'd all be gone on, wouldn't they? If that is where you think it's going to be.
Yeah. I mean they could, but they haven't. They could have already, right? Like that's something that they could have been doing, but they just they don't care. Like, how many mini drones does Xiaomi produce? Like, they just don't care because they still own the market. So we'll see, maybe.
Well, I think to an extent the markets, especially the consumer drone market's probably shrinking quite quickly, and times are tight for everybody. Money's hard to get hold of. It could be a different DJI gateway drug way in, but yeah, it's very interesting. Congratulations on being the first person to have one, and well, thanks for agreeing to talk to us about it.
Thanks.
I know what I wanted to ask you about. How did you activate it? Or does it need activating?
It does, right? That was actually the problem with the first drone that I was sent that didn't work. I could not activate it. It was some incompatible firmware, whatever. I go to activate and it would say, check your network, whatever. Like, oh, that's a known problem. I'll send you a new one. And then, yeah, just like, I log in, I set up a Specta account, just like you would to create a DJI account. And then it goes to their servers and activates, and yeah, it's
because there's some conjecture that is actually going direct and it's DJI that's activating it, and the firmware also has the new DJI encryption on it as well. So, but I don't know, not seen it. I've not looked at this, but
another way to tell is it sending out the aeroscope packets?
Well, that's what's being encrypted now. Yeah.
As far as we're aware, there is literally no difference.
And they're the new encrypted ones, though, aren't they?
They're
the new encrypted ones.
Yeah, the IP numbers in the same group as
DJI at the end of the day.
Yeah. So they haven't removed anything. With regards to the NFC system, you can't unlock. It's there, but none of the fly safe unlocks or anything work with DJI. There's no unlock facility. It's like the software's there, but it just doesn't work. So.
DJI missed an opportunity there, because if I was DJI, I'd just troll the hell out of everyone by actually not having aeroscope in it.
I was hoping, right? So I took this thing to a spot where I'm like, all right, well, because normally where I fly, it's not an issue, right? So I'm like, all right, well, I know where there is an issue. I'm gonna go there, and fingers crossed, like this would be awesome. Let's go. And no, it didn't fly. But I was at Lou Malnati's Pizza, which is fantastic. Outside of Chicago, deep dish. Like, hey, that's what I'm gonna do now. So, but
fair enough, fair play. I mean, you can't say fairer than that. I can't say fairer than that. Oh, and obviously now we all need to see that. You now need to make a video of that pizza, having proclaimed so much about it now. We need evidence, hard evidence. We know the drone exists. We know it's probably DJI. We don't actually know the pizza exists now. That's
the pizzas. It's the real deal.
It's the real deal. Yeah, it's very, 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 very interesting. And of course, Richard, so I'm going to try and get Richard in earlier than the last hour, which would be 9 times. But please stay with us, Jack, if you have the time, unless you do have to rush off for the pizza, because I'm sure we'll get some questions about that. But Richard, congratulations on the partnership. What do I want to say with the Civil Aviation Authority? What word should I use for that?
With NATS rather than the CIA.
Oh yeah, NATS. Oh yeah, that'll be it.
I don't
Good
like
job.
it.
I knew I was talking about.
Confused. Yeah.
Oh no. Well, what is it? A partnership? What are you holding their hand? Or are you taking them over?
I don't even know where to start with that. I'll start at the beginning. Look, we've been working with NATS for years, right? And really, what we announced, I think it was a week ago today in Geneva, was that we'd entered into a commercial partnership with NSL, which is the commercial part of NATS, the non-regulated part, if you like. That's the same part that provides a lot of air traffic services to some of the UK's busiest airports, by the way. And really, it was an announcement of I guess, two things. If you want to count the third thing, which is the fact that we're in the partnership. The first is really to sort of look at and accelerate how we can expand the Arrow system here in the UK for the benefit of commercial drone operators, eVTOLs, etc., over the next sort of 3 to 5 years. So that's a really important step. And the second aspect, which I think is really important to all drone operators that are looking or are involved in commercial work, is that over the course of this year and into next year, NATS will start to deploy the flight approval services system that we've been putting into other airports around the UK and across Europe, which basically means if you go onto any of our services like Drone Safety Map or Drone Assist or any third-party tools, which will be integrating with us as well, then it will just make it easier to interact with the people who manage those airports to get permissions to go fly anywhere in those FRZs. So it's, we've been doing pretty good work, I think, without the NATS guys, outside of NATS controlled airports. But obviously NATS manage many of the UK's busiest and most popular sort of airports. So certainly the ones where I would say they have the juiciest airspace, without any detriment to those that aren't those airports. But certainly a lot of our customers and users are always telling us, they would be great if they could get these automated flight approvals in places like Gatwick or Heathrow, for instance. And this is the type of partnership that will enable that to occur. So these are just the beginnings, I think, of what both parties are really excited about, because we have this whole kind of UTM technology platform, and NATS have some pretty bold ambitions and ideas, and we're keen to go on that journey with them.
I've got a question for you now. I'm afraid I'm going to give you a bit of a grilling, because your integration's already come up on the commercial groups today. It's because obviously you've got a relationship now with Leeds Bradford Airport, so you have a commercial operator doing a VLOS operation, and let's say, for example, you're taking roof inspection. You're no more in airspace with your drone than a roofer is on scaffolding, because you're literally just going up close to the roof, snapping a few photos, going down. At the moment, that is costing you nothing. And now Leeds Bradford Airport are already sticking on £12, and if you want it expedited, £24. Now, with a roof inspection, that you might only be getting 50 or 100 quid, because it's a residential. They don't want to pay a lot. So you're already eating into quite a significant amount of the profit with that. And then there's also the fact that CAP 722 says you shouldn't be charging for access to, the basic airports shouldn't be charging for managing UAS. So are we saying that's just going in the bin?
I couldn't speak to the regulation. It's not Outed Angel's job to enforce the law or to comment on that. I think what I would say is there is a big distinction between charging for access, which is a regulated function, and charging for the use of the system to provide the access, which I think is where a lot of these organizations are looking at it. I would also point out, I think we've even got some information in the public domain. There's case studies, etc., from, I think, London Heli springs to mind, London Heliport, about the amount of time it saves them, because dealing with drone operators can be, depending on where you are, can be quite a time-consuming task. And I think a lot of airports are concerned about the increase in demand on their resourcing. So again, I can't really comment on how NATS airports are going to roll these out. But what I do know is that it's up to the airport to determine what rates they charge, if any. And it's up to the airports to choose if they offer differentiated services as well.
I guess the problem is, though, the airports being told you're not charging, and then what we're doing is we essentially they are charging, and we're doing it by, and it isn't really fair from an operator's viewpoint. You're saying, well, we're charging you for access and software. Well, no, it's not really, because what you're saying is, if you don't use the software, we're not going to give you permission. So you've essentially. Well,
it's a good point that you bring up, but it's really a point that you need to bring up with Leeds Bradford, if that's the case you're making. I couldn't comment on it because I haven't been involved with that particular airport. What I would also be surprised about is if Leeds Bradford have made it completely impossible for them to discharge their responsibilities via any mechanism other than the software. Usually there is still a published mechanism to actually call the airport. Of course, what you're going to do there is probably have to wait a little bit longer, right? Because other people will be using the digital system to get an instantaneous approval in many instances, or even an expedited approval according to the rate card that they published and the tariffs that they published. But I think here's the reality, right? All of us in the commercial drone industry have been making drone flights much more popular over the last couple of years, and that is placing more and more demands on folks.
Is there actually data to prove that? Because the commercial,
well, yes, there is, because you only need to speak to the airports to tell you about the volume of work that's going up, right? That's one of the reasons they're deploying the tool.
The commercial side isn't, because we're seeing all the operators, we're seeing very long-term, well-known names in the industry going, I'm not doing it anymore, I'm sick and tired of it. So I think,
sure, but that's anecdotal, isn't it, Ian? Like that's anecdotal. That's people that or people that we know in the industry, some of whom are going to go out of business, some of them whom will not want to do it for other reasons. I don't think that it would be reasonable to attribute the fact that they might have to pay occasionally to fly in an FRZ. I can't make that leap, I'm afraid. Sorry.
You made the leap of saying it's going up. Well, I don't think it is. It might be hobbyists going up.
So I can tell you right now that commercial drone use in the UK in and around FRZs is on the increase. We see it daily.
Well, I'll say let's see some proof of that, because I don't think.
Hang on. What proof will you accept, Ian? Let's play that game.
Pick me.
Go on.
I know the proof. I'll accept. I want to see the data from your cameras. I want to see the data from the Arrow towers. And
proof, logic, reason, common sense.
Well, they will tell you. They will give you a surveillance picture, right? They won't tell you about the volume of people that are applying for a permission to fly in and around an FRZ. I think even if let's try it this way, right? If you don't accept that there has been an increase in the use of commercial drone operations over the last 5 years, that's fine. The next point would be, do you think that drone usage will go up or down or stay the same in the next 5 years?
I think it'll go down. There's a lot of operators unhappy. The charges are going up. So the biggest slice is being taken of your profit already with renewal fees, insurance, and so on. And even drone prices, DJI's, been moving them upwards. So actually, your costs are going up. There's a lot less work that's being offered out. I mean, a lot of like the TV industry and so on, they're watching the money at the moment. So there's less money floating about. So I would say absolutely it's going down. If you ask like Mark, he's very well sort of connected around those operators. I think he'd tell you that it's going down. I think if you ask the CAA for numbers, they'll tell you it's actually not going up. I mean, what you might have is you have more people with your 250s flying them about, but they're not.
Well, that was exactly the point I was going to make. That there's probably a lot of people with sub 250s ringing up saying, "Hello, what do I need to do to fly at your airport?" People that have just gone to Costco or some other big box store and bought their thing, and now they're operating, and we don't know those people, Ian. Let's be fair. That they're not
but that's my point.
Really an old.
I'm not talking about recreational. I'm talking about the commercial. There's two distinct differences.
No. But there'll be. I guarantee there'll be people ringing up airports all day long saying.
The statement I was making, I wasn't saying drone use had gone down. I was saying commercial drone use had gone down. And that's the distinction. So I just wanted to make that clear.
I think if you're going to make that distinction, I think the distinction you ought to complete, right? What you're suggesting is that the types of operations typically done by a single person to do maybe a survey operation or a survey job around an airport, I believe what you're saying is that those are going down. I don't particularly have any evidence that supports
commercial use full stop is going down.
So I fundamentally disagree with that point on the basis that we are aware of numerous companies that are investing tens of millions, some of them north of 100 million, in building fleets of autonomous vehicles for everything from drone deliveries to surveys. So just let us just be clear, it is not appropriate and it is not factual to say that commercial drone use is declining. What you're saying is the types of operations for single operation type workloads by private pilots or commercial pilots operating for, I think you mentioned roof scaffolding, that you think that is declining. That might be true. I just don't see it with the data that we have.
Using financial numbers from bigger entities putting it in, and I'm talking about numbers of operators. So unless you can show there's actually more,
yeah, but this is how you cut and dry it, isn't it? What's a commercial drone operator? Is it a company with 150 drones, or is it one person with one? How do you want to cut those numbers? The last I checked, the Civil Aviation Authority will report on the numbers of registrants, and a registrant can be a company.
Yeah, I'd say I'd like to see the numbers before we say it's massively increasing, because it certainly doesn't feel that way. And
I can't fight the feeling, Ian.
It's from being.
There's a song in that, you know.
People that are in the industry that are well known, that have got the permissions, that have been there since day X. So. You know,
I do think, you know, one of the things I think that you do point out, which is I think a valid observation, is that the sort of operations that are typically carried out by, and it's an awful phrase, but I think we'll all understand it, you know, a one-man band type operation. Nobody seen
knows or understands.
I think we have seen a reduction in those. I cannot point, to that being because some airports charge for permissions, whereas before they didn't, because those companies, frankly, didn't only operate in the FRZ of one airport, right? They are typically, they'll go where the money was. At the same time, the other data that we have, and I think it's very important to be aware of, and this is public, you can go look at the maps, right, live and in real time, you know, the volumes of reported commercial flights that people are putting in, and bearing in mind, we don't tag them commercial, users tag them commercial, so it's up to them. Those have been on the incline, right? They've been going up and up and up, month on month. We get the seasonal and the weather-based lulls like other people, but generally speaking, they're growing between 10 and 20%.
So,
right?
So can you put a number? Can you put a ballpark number on that, Richard? How many flights do you deal with a month? In
the UK, for self-reported flights, so I'm going to discount from that people that are using our professional integrations, and they might have, you know, fleet management software, all that kind of other stuff. But the types of operations I think Ian is referring to, we would see on an average month between sort of 80 and 100,000 operations reported in the UK, right? So that is as of currently. You know, this time last year, that was probably 40 to 50.
The thing with that, though, that doesn't prove that commercial operations maybe not, but that just proves that more people are getting your apps, so you know about them. Well, so yeah. In fact, you could have gone down and you've just got more people signing on.
But there's a direct correlation, isn't there, between people who use our apps and people who fly drones. People who don't fly drones don't use our app. So there's definitely some relationship there. You've got to concede some ground on that.
People are being pushed towards you, like with the police communication and so on out, saying, well, don't use it. In fact, the CAA have even said it, is don't use the DJI app, install the app. So people are going to follow that advice because it's CAA advice now. You know,
I mean, I'm not aware of any CAA advice, by the way, to use Drone Assist, or in fact, I'm aware of the exact opposite, because it used to be an app which the CAA published and pushed, and then the CAA got challenges from people like AirMap, which I don't think exists anymore.
No.
And then the CAA decided not to push any of those, but you'll quite often find, you know, people at CAA talking about it in high regard because it's a good source of information. But the point, I think, coming back to that central point, I think your point here appeared to be that commercial drone operations are on the low, and I think you also mentioned that that's really more of a feeling. I'm just putting out there that that's not what I see, but what I do see, which I think is a reasonable observation, is that the nature of those commercial operations is shifting. It's shifting away from, you know, single person with a single drone, to companies with fleets of vehicles with an aspiration to automate more and more of those flights. Now, in that future, over the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, the workloads at many of these airports will exceed the capacity they have to manually approve those. That is just a fact. I've just come back from Geneva, where all the airports had a big conference, and that's one of the big things that they're talking about. So I think it's appropriate that if we still want to have a commercial drone industry, we need to provide airports and other airspace managers and authorities, etc., with the ability to interface with technologies that we all want to use, right? We don't want to phone the airport. We don't want to use a VHF radio to have a chat with them. We want to use an app, and we want to use our favorite app, whether it's Drone Assist or whatever. You know, that capability has to be there if there is going to be a scale. And I think it's that scale that we're looking to support.
So now it's my turn to have a pop at him. No, it's, I think so. But what I think perhaps the messaging that needs to start happening is the relationship that you'll have with private flyers, which is kind of none at all. And my take on it is none at all unless they want to be part of it. I think a few private flyers are beginning to worry that it's all going to be lots of cost to them.
I mean, like hobbyists, sorry.
Yeah, hobbyists. Yeah. But
I worry about that too, right? Because Ian actually also congratulated you and hurrahed you. But I saw the post that Ian saw today, so we are actually, we're pleased that it's you guys that have got there. But it's how it's rolled out, right? It all makes sense. Like I get where it's coming from. Even Ian's points are valid, right? I think it needs to be taken in a slightly broader context. The workload is shifting. The way people use the airspace is shifting and changing, and it's moving away from a sort of very sort of mandrolic process, and gradually elements of it are becoming more and more automated. I think generally,
Richard, just to give you an idea, because if you were to address this point fairly, I think we'd agree on this. Now, what I'm getting at is a VLOS operator, say you're doing a fairly trivial job now, the airport really, in reality, doesn't even need to know about it. It's just the way the law is at the moment, especially post.
Yeah, that's the law, right?
Yeah, it is. But the point is, whether it is or it isn't, we can still argue that actually it's a bit crap. So if you've got a sub 250,
I can point to a lot of laws I think are a bit crap.
Yeah. A bit crap, yeah. Hang on, the boys' big book of bit crap. Where is it? I've got it here somewhere.
Today, if you're good at, you're doing a job, if it's costing like 10, 25 quid of that, it does matter. It is money that's going to influence that job. And you can't always keep passing it on to the client because everyone's stacking charges onto the drone and you go, pass it on to the client. Eventually that breaks.
Here's where we agree, right?
Doing deliveries, every delivery, there is no way they're getting charged £10 for every delivery. They're not going to get charged £10 for that USB stick I'm getting at 16 quid. They wouldn't stand for it.
I agree. I'm agreeing with you here, right? What we have said consistently is, look, generally speaking, and I'm probably going to get shot down here. There's people in the comments, I'm sure, and you guys are certainly a good, you're happy to tell me the truth, put it that way. But look, people don't generally mind paying for things that they get benefit from, right? That's a reasonable statement, right? We don't buy stuff that we don't want to spend our money on. We generally don't mind paying for things, providing there is a clear, tangible benefit. The challenge comes when people are required to pay for something that was probably free in the past, but discounting the fact that maybe the system that was there in the past, and I mean non-technical, hadn't got the advantages that they're now able to benefit from. So maybe they can get it instantaneously, whereas before, in some instances, it can take 90 days. So there's that element. The other aspect is, I don't think the market will tolerate for very long being charged more than they're able to make. So at that point, I think you will see airports acting like other businesses. They want customers, they want to make money, right? They want to get paid. Same as you, same as everybody else. And in that kind of market, I think that will drive the price down. But I think, what we've given the airports is the ability to differentiate so that they're able to set a service for maybe you don't mind waiting 7 days for permission. Maybe they have a free tier. Maybe they charge you £1. I don't know. Maybe they have an immediate service, which is, higher demand. You could probably make the case that if you couldn't plan it, clearly you're getting paid more to just rock up right now because it's more important to other people. So I think it's just a case of giving the airports the technology, allowing them to do whatever it is they're going to do with it, and then working out what works for them and their users. Because in my genuine and honest experience, these airports are not out to fleece people, right? They're just trying to recover the cost in many instances of dealing with drone operators. It's just that simple.
Yeah, I just don't feel that there's a necessity for even there to be a cost there in these scenarios.
Well, there are actual human beings at the airport, right, that have a job, and part of that job is to deal with incoming requests.
That used to be me. You can't say they're actual human beings. I mean,
they're lovely people. Many of these people, they have to get paid, right? And what the airports are saying is when they're not doing their regular job, they're processing these flight requests, which they too would probably, many of them would say, well, some of these we don't really worry about, which is why very specifically in the approval services platform, they can set criteria that allow them to automate those requests, right?
Yeah, so they could, for instance, say, because Jack's on the a very special guest here, and Jack's on the sidelines. I just want to check one thing with him. Yet, have you got? Do you don't have in? Oh, what's it called over there?
Lance.
The Lank. There's no pay for any of those squares there, is there yet?
Correct. No, it's free. I have heard talk about that, but no, currently if we want to fly where we need approval, we go on an app, we click a button, and usually, I mean, my experience has always been within minutes it's approved or denied.
And that's a great system, right? Let's just be clear. But the US federal government pays for that system on behalf of the facilities and manages it. In the UK and across Europe, there is no such equivalent. One of the other aspects which is interesting is in the FAA, what's called the MOU, the Memorandum of Understanding between companies that integrate with Lance, is expressly prohibited to charge anything for a user then connecting into Lance, right? So that means even the companies that have to comply, which they do this at a loss today, which is another reason that the Outage Angel pulled out of the Lance program many years ago, because it costs significant time to do that, right? It takes a significant amount. And then the FAA can just at will say, hey, we've changed the requirements, guys. You need to update your Lance authorization or your Lance program connection. So, it's an unusual mechanism, right? I mean, the US federal government is funded, but companies that write software don't get funded by the US federal government to maintain it. So that's an unusual system, which will eventually have to change, which is maybe why Jack is hearing that probably at some point someone's going to have to pay. I mean, it's America.
Well,
the other thing,
someone's been in the meeting. Someone's been in the meeting.
We're already paying for it. It's already happening. I'm already paying. That's how taxes.
Well, and your taxes.
There you go. Yeah, he's paying already through his taxes. But I hear that general point, right? And to Gary's point earlier, I think we do a lot for hobbyists using the platform. We don't charge hobbyists anything, and we're not planning to do that. My concern, like a lot of other people, is that that's going to increasingly become a more onerous hobby. There'll be requirements for remote ID. There'll become requirements for equipage. There are probably going to be transponder zones. I don't know what's going to happen with registration, blah, blah, blah. So the costs are going to go up, right? That worries me. I actually have the same exact concern for GA in many instances, right? GA are seeing more and more drone flights. They're seeing that they're being asked increasingly to change their procedures and their equipage just to deal with other people as they see it. And no one's offering to compensate those guys, right? So there's a challenge there. So there's only one sky, which is the other aspect, right? We've all got to figure out how to share it. And you've got commercial folks who use it and get they pay for a service today from people like Nats. If you're flying Ryanair from, I don't know, Gatwick to Magaluf, you're paying Nats and you're paying that in your ticket price. Those types of operations are going to become increasingly more common for UAVs. That's just the reality of it.
So as it stands, so hobbyists, you're A for away if you want to be part of the system. And a system that Jack won't have heard about is the corridors. So will this new relationship help you with the corridor? The corridor is a distance of about 100 miles, isn't it? I think, Richard.
165, but who's counting?
It's 165, is it? Well, whatever's. Yeah. But you've put towers along the route, going very quickly for Jack, and it's they've got all sorts of cameras and sensors on them. And your aim of the game there, well, actually, you should tell us the aim of the game. Why am I telling you?
In a nutshell, the aim of the game is to enable companies that want to fly drones beyond line of sight routinely without having to close the airspace with some form of airspace restriction, such as a temporary danger area, or without using human spotters in the loop. So doing a 100-mile drone delivery, having 1,000 people, all in a line, providing the separation, being able to offload that separation over to a system, an API, effectively. And the way that system works principally for everybody, including you, Jack, is we focus intently on having ground infrastructure, which is looking up at specifically for low altitude air traffic, principally GA, which isn't carrying a transponder or isn't going to be detected at a low altitude, and also carrying a complement of sensors in there for UAS as well. And the only goal for Skyway is to enable customers of ours who specifically want to use that BVLOS capability to go do that without affecting any other airspace user. So that was the kind of thesis behind the Arrow and the Skyway system, was saying, okay, well, we don't want to require anybody else anywhere in the ecosystem on the drone side or on the aviation side to have to change what they do today as a result of one of our customers wanting to fly BVLOS on our corridor. I don't know if that was a good description or not, and, but I'm sure I've probably missed bits, and I'm sure there are other questions. But hopefully that gives a quick idea around what that concept is all about.
I think it's very exciting, because you're the Model Aircraft Club or whatever, the glider pilot, the ultralight pilot, the balloon driver, they do nothing. You will deconflict your traffic, that's commercial traffic doing whatever in the corridor, will deconflict itself with the stuff you've found. Yeah. And you have so many of sensors that you've got a very complete, and I think this is a big sea change in the airspace world. You'll have a way more complete sky picture than a conventional radar station, SSR, and all the traditional stuff. And that has exciting to me. That's very exciting. When I was in the Air Force, I can remember they showed us this a dome where the controller would stand in the dome and you'd point at things, and that's in the future. That would be now. That's how we'd be controlling stuff, was pointing stuff in the dome. And you need to get to that fantastic picture. You need those sensors. So I think we're about to see a paradigm shift in lower airspace in particular. Upper airspace, who cares? It can be procedural, really, and everything's very easy to spot. So that, to me, is why it's so exciting. And I'm hoping that this partnership that you've signed up with will allow you to actually start running some decent tests and crack on with it.
I think that's certainly the plan, right? And we are in talks with partners, many of whom are in the public domain as well, about scaling this technology so that we can sense more of what's going on in the airspace. And I think the other aspect I didn't mention was it's also really important for drone companies and drone pilots and drone manufacturers, right? Because they don't need to, go out and buy the altitude angel hook-on device to connect to Skyway. They can do that operation entirely in software if they wish. Or they can go and build a brand new drone, do whatever it is they want to do. They have options, right? And the whole purpose of Skyway was to move away from something which was a bit of a trend. If you guys were paying attention, you would have seen it 3-4 years ago. Lots of companies offering so-called hook-on devices, telemetry devices, in one country in particular, which I shall not name, but you can. We've got some avid Googlers on here. There was a little bit of a stitch up between the ANSP and a telecom company. And the ANSP not letting you fly in a particular region if you didn't have a particular SIM card using a device that they sold you. So, this was the direction everything was going, and we didn't think that was fair or equitable or really going to scale. So we said, okay, well, why is it the job of the regulator or anybody to say how you communicate or what equipment you carry? The job is just not to hit anything else, right? So that's really what the Arrow and the Skyway thesis was all about. Let's just create a system which does a better job of looking out than you or I could do on the ground, right? And that has been the basic goal for all of our detection today, is can we beat the gold standard, right? And the gold standard is the eyeballs. And the answer is yes, we can beat them. Now we've got to figure out how we make that work within the regulation. Because again, the regulation here in the UK, I think it's similar, Jack, out in the US, generally requires unaided line of sight, right? So that would mean not using cameras.
I wouldn't call the eyeballs the gold standard after Gatwick.
Well, listen. Let's just say this, right? You can take the view that if the CAA is comfortable with the risk, or a national aviation authority is comfortable with the risk of visual line of sight, then it should be quite comfortable with the risk of a system which is demonstrably better than line of sight, right? But what I would also just add to that is the law is a strange thing, and people who people who operate within that domain generally lack the evidence that they need to be able to campaign for the types of regulatory changes that we all think make sense. But again, I'll come back to, I know Jackson in the US, the FAA have a great series of tools which we just don't have in the UK law, right? The FAA can issue a waiver or an exemption, right? So they can just go, yes, I know the law applies, but I exempt you from it, right? And we just can't do that in the UK.
We need that.
I think it would definitely make progress a little bit more rapid, right? But you've still got different concerns. It is true what the CAA say, airspace in the UK is very complex and very difficult. But I would just argue that you could make that same statement for pretty much any country on the planet, right? Ours is not special, it's just different. I would argue that Singapore has some very challenging airspace to manage, right? It's incredibly small.
It takes 2 minutes to get across it.
Yeah. So I think it's just a case of, you've got to prove that something is safer than we have today. But in the UK, particularly, we're hampered, as a community from being able to make that kind of process when, actually all the signs say today, if you're going to do this, then you're an ANSP, right? And that's kind of crazy, because if I am an ANSP, then I should really pick up my headset and start, controlling planes entering and exiting UK airspace, which is not what we want to do. Right? So anyway,
I shouldn't make light of it.
While you're here, I'd like to just finally make your life just a little bit more difficult for a moment. Gary, could you just open up that tweet image? Because I want to...
Hang on. No, now you're making me make it more difficult for his life. All right, hang on. I better find it. Hang on. Talk amongst yourselves for a moment or two.
I want to take this up for a user viewpoint here.
Okay, all right. We'll get there. I don't like surprises like this.
System improvement for future, and I think this will help get away with some of the gripe. So this is what the operator's seen trying to operate at Leeds Bradford. So it's saying recreational 0, and we'll assume that'll be approved, hopefully, and not just said, no, you can't. Commercial 12, expedite 24. Now, if I was buying a parcel and I'm paying for the expedited, I don't want to just be told it's expedited. I want to be told it's getting there in 48 hours. Likewise, if I'm paying for the cheap one, I'm going to be told it's 3 days. So here, that £12 should say, and this is the time you will get it. And the expedited, likewise. So that if that one at £12 is, say, 3 days, it should say 3 days.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
It should say
did you click on it and go through to the next screen, which tells you what the SLA is?
No.
Hang on. I'm not looking at that.
But this is the money now. I want to know now.
Well, okay, I'll take that product feedback on board, and I'm sure we can do that. If you use dronesafetymap.com, you'll see all the roadmap. You'll see all the rate card tariffs on the same screen. But I think you look like you've taken a screenshot of our iOS app, I'm assuming.
No, I've not taken the screenshot. Someone else had taken it, and I've just stolen it.
Yeah, I mean, there's limited real estate on the screen there, but I think, and I'd have to check, I haven't looked at it for a little while. If you were to click through on the rate card, it will then tell you what you're getting for that, right? So, we were pretty fastidious about making sure that people know what they're paying for. But I agree, if you're looking at that one screenshot, it's not telling you what the turnaround time is for that. And I'll raise it with Simon in the office tomorrow, who owns the product, and just say, hey.
Yeah, and a plus and minus against those.
Sorry, Simon, you've got some work.
Yeah, he's having a bad morning.
You'll be watching this now, Simon. Sorry, Simon.
Anyway, no. I'm going to stop busting your balls now.
I'm happy to have the balls busted anytime you guys like, but just remember, I don't lay down like lots of people. But I think the reality is, look, you raised a good point there. The screenshot differs from my own recollection of drone safety map. When you go there, for instance, we have a bit more screen real estate, and I think Again, I won't speak from position of fact 'cause I can't remember the last time I actually looked at the schematics for it on our system. The designs for it. But I was fairly certain on the main DSM site, it actually brought a lot of that information forwards. And I'm fairly confident that if you click through, it will then tell you what the SLA is. But that was, I'm glad you left it there. I think I thought there were other questions coming, if I'm honest here.
Well, why don't we? Why don't we take ourselves off to drone safety map and have a look? Let's see what happens, shall we?
Oh, I love it.
So off we go to drones. Oh, go away! This thing. I don't know why you're going to make it go to London all the time. Not everyone lives in London, you know. Where's that airfield we're talking about here?
Oh, it's Leeds Bradford. So you want to go
Leeds Bradford. That's up north, isn't it?
Yes.
So I can already feel the room getting
Leeds.
colder. So I scroll up here. It's already getting colder. Now, what's happening here? This might be new to you, Jack, but this is Richard's map. And there's something's happening in Leeds there. Anyway.
This is free, by the way. It's Richard's Porsche 911 generating map according to Mitchell Roberts, which is entirely free for the world to use.
Richard's life work has been boiled down to this is Richard's map.
Well, I have this conversation with my data team all the time. It's just like, you guys just draw pretty shapes and colourful drawings on maps, right? That's all you do.
Well, what I was going to say is he's obviously got lots of crayons. That's all the point I was going to make. He's the owner of lots of crayons. Yeah. So, all right. So here's Leeds Bradford. So can from here, UTM ready. So is that, look, 3 stars. It's not 4 or 5 stars. There's only 3 stars up there.
We only go up.
Can I book a book a flight from this now? What do I
click
do?
on EG NM Leeds Bradford where it says UTM ready and get prepared. No, the red one with the stars. Scroll down.
Yeah. Oh, am I not there? Can you not see it? This is
I can just about see your screen. So if you scroll down and click apply, you'll then go to the next screen.
Request to fly here.
Yeah. So I think
I saw the fee. Oh, do I have to log in?
Why is the prices more expensive on this? 25 and 30 versus.
Can't tell you that. I don't know if Leeds Bradford changed the pricing from the moment someone took a screenshot. I just don't know. Just to clarify for everyone listening, I am not Leeds Bradford Airport.
Today, I would identify as Leeds Bradford Airport.
It's a modern world. We can all identify as the facility we choose to be.
Exactly. Why is it not remembering my login? I think it's that one. Let's see.
I'm not seeing your screen refresh, by the way.
No, you're not seeing the screen now. No, I'm making sure you didn't see that screen. Okay. Right. So let's share this tab instead. I might agree with this stuff. I might do. Right, we're going to go back up there. That's a bit, isn't it? Simon, don't make it go away from what we were looking at. Leeds, here we are. So we go here. And for those of you tuning in the first time to Paint Drying Weekly, we'll be watching paint dry here. So right, we go down here. Is it the same? That's the same price as you saw earlier, isn't it, Ian?
That's a good start.
25.30, yeah.
You do realise, right, that what you're about to do is live. So get your credit card out, Gary.
Oh, look, Simon, I've gone back to London again.
I can't see your screen.
Oh, can't you? Yeah, it's London. We're back in London again. I clicked through and went back to London. Probably, I know what it is. Richard as earmarked my account as don't let this git do anything. That's what he's earmarked. That's what's happened. So I click here.
Are you on a different screen?
Are you not seeing the operator portal? Oh, I am now. Yeah.
No.
Okay. Oh, it clicked. Oh, yes. No, well, I'll click request. So, yeah, it opens another screen. Share this tab instead. So it opens another screen and it takes me back to London. When I click.
Not a bugger, yeah.
It's not a bug, it's a feature. Anyway, I'll quickly stop sharing this and we'll move the conversation on. So, Simon, sorry, we're giving you a bad day in the office tomorrow.
He's gonna get a conversation in the morning.
Is he? Is he going to give you a jolly good listening to?
Hopefully.
Yes.
I'll just point out to the video. I'll subject him to the hour-long, emotional private that I've had with you guys.
That's right. Trauma counselling for all in the office tomorrow. What I actually did want to ask you for was a couple of years ago when we spoke. You mentioned that you'd been to these airspace conferences and nobody was doing UTMs. Then all of a sudden there were 4 or 5 people doing UTMs, and then I think the number you mentioned in conversation was 80 people turning up. How was this last conference that you were at in Switzerland, and how much more of drone talk was there in it?
I think it's a couple of things have been conspiring, right? This show used to be in Spain, in Madrid. So you had hundreds of thousands of delegates, right? The footfall was tremendous. It was huge. And then they moved it to Geneva 2 years ago. This was the second year of it being in Geneva. And despite what the conference organizers say, we're pretty convinced that less people can go to Geneva, right? It's very expensive for anyone that's never been. It's like 50 euros for a hamburger. It's ridiculous, right? So footfall was lower. But some of the exhibitors, they're still the biggest exhibitors. You've got your Thalases, your Indras, your Leidos type organizations. So these are massive aviation companies. I think Boeing had a slightly more modest presence this year. I think not trying to rock the boat too much, but it's that kind of conference. I don't think I can recall more than a handful of stands that didn't have some kind of drone focus, right? They didn't. And I'm also including the big ANSPs. Obviously, you had Nats there talking about drones. I think quite frequently you see the German ANSP out there, DFS. I think Skies in Belgium, the ANSP, massive picture. Hilarious, by the way. You guys are like this. There was a picture of a Mavic Mini, which I am absolutely convinced was at least a meter long, right? It wasn't a Mini anymore. It was huge. So drones were a huge focus out there. But again, the focus is very different, right? There are companies out there now selling drone detection systems. There are companies out there doing UTM, quote unquote. But from our view, most often to most people, UTM is putting a drone dot on a map. That's as UTM-y as it generally tends to get. And then you've got a few organizations, sort of operating drones, offering their services for hire. Things like I think they call it a pavement inspection or a tarmac inspection at a runway. Believe it or not, there are companies doing this now, right? So there is a definite drone theme out in Geneva, but I was, my own personal experience, and bear in mind, we all got back from the show sort of Friday, the week just gone, and then a lot of my team that were out there have all gone on holiday because we let them have holidays. So we haven't had our sort of main debrief from it yet, but our initial take was, look, we think we're still operating in a reasonably unique space. We did a great series of Arrow demos for anyone that's interested. We did from Geneva. We were doing live flight operations on Skyway across Reading and Thiel, which is an area in Berkshire. And the feedback that we got there was we're the only company that people have seen actually doing live stuff. Other people are simulating it, which is actually easy to convince anyone of anything in VR land, isn't it? So that was good. And then we also had one of our camera systems on the stand, and delegates could walk up. They could pick a postcard of their favorite aircraft. And yes, there was a Chinook, of course, or a drone. and they could walk around with it, and the camera would pick that out wherever they were, as long as they were in front of the camera somewhere. The camera would pick that out and then project that on a fake tower that we put on our map. So it would, triangulate their position. It was a lovely little demo. So we had a lot of interactions, a lot of good questions from people, a lot of CAAs and NAAs. And then I gave a talk to ANSPs on really what the rest of the commercial world has been doing for 20 years now, which is sort its data out. Prepare for what is coming, because you're not prepared right now, and it's going to be very expensive and very difficult and ultimately very cumbersome for anyone that wants to use the services of an ANSP, or maybe I should rephrase that, has to use the services of an ANSP to get airborne. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, Gary, but There is a lot of companies out there. Still think the drone industry is one of the only industries where I think in recent times there's quite a lot of, there's no other way of dressing it up, right? There's quite a lot of snake oil out there. A lot of companies trying to make a quick buck, particularly on the counter UAS side of things. That I think is really frustrating because people invest genuine money buying stuff they think is going to help them with the security response. In other words, keep people safe, and these systems just don't work. Or they have overly broad and bold claims.
Well, I'm just going to build one again, because as we know, all you need to make a counter UAS system is some sort of box of bits, and you chuck some other stuff in, and we'll probably need a battery. Let's have an autopilot in there. I've made this one.
I just turn them off. I just turn them off.
It's Mavlink enabled now because I've put that Pixhawk in there, and then of course no counter drone system shall run without a guarded switch. You have to have a guarded danger switch, and there we are. And that's
I don't know what you're building, but it looks a little bit suspect out there, Gary. That's all I'm saying.
What? I have all these bits on my desk. The counter UAS is $150,000. This it always works because they've kept them all away. Yeah, no, there's definitely snake oil galore, and that's I'm bringing it all the way back around to Jack. That's what I'm a little. Oh, look, you say snake oil, and who appears? That's all it took. That's all it took.
Never underestimate the power of a rock as an anti-drone measure.
Absolutely. But it brings it back round to Jack in that. What is going on? What is going on? It could be the snakiest snake oil we've had in a while.
Yeah, we're definitely dealing with something is definitely strange. Right. That is all we actually know, I think.
It can't be a DJI, it's green. I mean, immediately it can't be DJI. I mean, the DJI is grey, isn't it? So it's just simple. It's just it's an approximation based on some enthusiastic inspiration.
Well, what is your opinion, Bruce? Come on, what is your opinion on what's going on?
It's pretty obvious, isn't it? I mean, it is ways to sidestep various bans, both inside and outside of China. It is positioning for changes to the regular or the what do you call it? Trade frameworks that are being enacted. There's a trade war going on between China and the USA, and it's being disguised as a war for security and things. It's basically a trade war. There are restrictions on what you can buy, what you can sell, and various players in that marketplace are having to reposition themselves to jump hurdles and dig ditches and get around these trade restrictions.
A little bird has told me, and I'm just going to put it out there because then if you start a rumor and it becomes true if enough people repeat it, but somebody has actually mentioned that DJI might be being split up in China into different divisions, and that would be very, very interesting if that's the fact. And I think we can.
Where's the benefit to that? They're going to have a military division for the Ukrainian conflict, so they can say, "Oh, our domestic drones have no place in warfare." But if you want one, just talk to our military guys.
Exactly, something. Well, who knows? But I've heard it from two sources in the last week, and what that actually means, I don't know. Perhaps that's people just justifying that these things that are made in Malaysia is the truth, and perhaps this has also revealed that they were making stuff in Malaysia all along, because that's quite an undertaking, isn't it? You don't suddenly start building these things somewhere. You don't say, next week let's go and build in Malaysia. Can't be hard. I mean, they must have been coming.
But China can build factories overnight. They build bridges within 24 hours.
True. True.
It's no problem. And when you've got countries that are looking for investment capital, they'll bend over backwards to accommodate you.
Yeah, so it's very, very, very interesting, and there'll be the amount of noise on Sunday when it was really going on. I haven't had a Sunday as busy as that for years. It used to get busy sometimes, but it hasn't been busy like that for years, and I don't quite know why. And there's all sorts of other. Actually, Ian's got some other things going on that we can't really talk about, but that could last for hours. Or you didn't know we can talk. We can actually talk about. You tweeted the Gatwick thing, I think, didn't you? In the police, it's ridiculous. The Sussex police are saying, "Oh, no, we don't have any aeroscope," and there's photos of the aeroscope on the roof with policemen stood next to
They
it.
doctored that. AI. It's AI.
AI,
Produce
yeah,
those images.
pictures.
Yeah,
That's
can't
it.
believe
Yeah,
anything you
that's
see.
That's what it is. That's what it is. Yeah, that's quite extraordinary.
Yeah, I'll get you the link to the Freedom of Information so you can see it. But there's no other way of saying it other than they're just outright lying, and it's most bizarre because this comes out of the court case. So we've actually had a judge that has said to Sussex Police, answer the question, giving them 28 days. They've waited till like day 26 or so. So they've left it right to the last minute to make out, oh, we've complied. And then basically what they've said is it's just nonsense. We know it's untrue. And I'm just.
But also we know probably their get out of jail, and I use that deliberately. A term here will be, oh, you meant that Aeroscope? No, that's airport police. We're Sussex Police. Nothing to do with us, mate.
Well, the thing is, they are part of Sussex Police, so they can't get away with that.
Are they? Are they actually Sussex Police?
Well, that's what it says on the internet.
Oh well, there we are then. There's enough said. Job done. Definitely rubber stamped. Enough said.
Let's have a look. To be honest, the point I've been trying to make. So the bizarre thing with this is Sussex Police didn't even get involved with the tribunal case. They haven't been involved other than passing on information in the debate that went backwards and forward, and then the decision. And if they had, they would have seen that we debated about the fact that Aeroscope was there, and I specifically went to the point of naming it repeatedly. And that's in the judgment itself. So the Sussex Police have just gone from the point of being told, they've gone back to the original question. They're playing the normal games they play on freedom of information. But, you know, when you're playing games and it's all gone all the way to court and being ruled against you, I think you're on probably slightly dodgy ground.
How are you going to deal with this one? Are they going to go back to court? How does this work? How can you?
That's what I don't really know. I mean, really, as far as I'm concerned, I mean, Sussex Police were told they had to answer the question, or they're being essentially in contempt of court, and it would go to an upper tribunal. So, as far as I see it, they're in contempt because they haven't answered the question. But whether the law works like that, I don't really know. It might.
But I suppose you can say they have answered the question. It's wrong. It's a lie. It's a fib. It's a white lie. Oh, I shouldn't say lie. Allegedly, it's mischaracterization of the truth. But they have answered the question.
But they haven't. That's it. They've responded, but they haven't done what they're asked to do, which was to answer my question. So not in my view, because it's not. They simply haven't. What they're doing is saying we can't answer it because we had no counter drone system. Bear with me a second, I shall find it. I've done that many tweets around it that it's just seen the one that had the link, because I put the link in. I actually CC'd Katie Bourne, who's the essentially you have like, what do they call them? Crime commissioners. So she's the crime commissioner for Sussex Police. She never acknowledges the tweets of that, but I CC her in them so that if anything comes out of this, she can't deny knowledge of the fact. So I've just put it in the private chat. I've actually annotated the bottom with why the Sussex Police decision is really just, it's in bad faith. But if you scroll to the bottom of that and then share it, Gary, and we can have a look. The audience will know themselves as soon as they see what's being said here that it's false.
So we're going right down the bottom.
Yeah. It's the final response. You'll see an annotation at the very, very bottom, so you can ignore that. That's that. You can go past that one. Yeah. It's the very last annotation's me. Yes, so you can go up now. So go up past this. That's my note. And this is their response. So this is them. They're even doing the good afternoon, like the trying to be like we're friends. And then if you do download our view on that.
Oh, download of let's download it.
Yeah, you get it in nicer with the heading and that there. So they basically said that we're saying the information is partly held. So the information received does not marry up with events as they unfolded at the time. And this is where we have a fictional presentation where Sussex Police are saying they had no counter drone system at all, which this is not true anyway, straight off, because the RAF system was provided under military aid to civil authorities, which essentially means it is, at that point, for that period, you give that asset to Sussex Police, so it was under their command. So they had the full-on military system, and prior to that, they had this aeroscope that we've seen them with. So if you scroll on down a little bit, so it's a bit further down. It's what's further. Yeah, whoa. You've gone a bit too far now. It's this bit here. It's these bullet points.
Yeah.
So they're basically trying to present of the fact that they only have people with eyes looking at the sky. So let's have a look.
I'd have found that phrase quite interesting. No detect track equipment was there. That was interesting. And the mitigation, the form of multiple staff looking for their drones.
Including rifle officers. So they're saying, oh no, we were only looking. And then saying, oh, we considered shotguns. Oh, what good's a shotgun going to do? What relevance is that anyway? You know, I'm just saying, tell me when you bought or rented the aeroscope, because my understanding is it was already announced.
It was there in the tower, wasn't it? Then. It was, but the tower had one as well. They had that portable box one that was there, but just I believe nobody knew how to use it.
But it says here in that it said at no point in the intervening period did Sussex Police have a Detector 1 system.
I like Richard's blue dot there. That's very good, Rich. Very good.
So, I mean, we've all seen the pictures. They're still on the Daily Mail and everything. In fact, I went looking afterwards, and there's loads of pictures. So there was some lucky person that I think lives near the airport, maybe in an apartment or something, and they could see the police on the top of Gatwick Police Station. So they were just continually taking photos. So we've got a police officer using aeroscope and pointing to it with senior officers there, showing them what he's doing. And they've got a photograph of this. So this whole thing of, you know, them trying to pretend they didn't have one. Yeah. But I think what they're trying to do is the way is there's two techies there. So there's two civilian guys. So they might have come from counter-terrorist command. So what Sussex Police, it appears, are trying to do is kind of say, well, we weren't operating it, knowing that, you know, essentially saying they were operating it and we don't pay their bills normally. So we'll pretend that we can't admit to this because it's not us using it. But you've literally got one of your officers stood next to them. He's being charged, no doubt, with overtime rate. So he has an expense. But even because they've been provided as assets, they still, my question's still valid. Because even if you say, well, these were provided by this force under mutual aid, and we weren't charged for them, the question is, the answer is still 0.00 pounds, and it came from such and such a place. It's not. There wasn't a counter UAS system. That's just false. And I've gone back to the tribunal, and I've gone back to the ICO and saying, Sussex. To be honest, if you look at it as well, this shows you how Sussex Police are. That they believe they can bend the truth. Now, what kind of integrity do you get from Sussex Police? You're there to uphold the law. You're a police service, and you're saying, I can ignore a law. I can manipulate it. I can present and twist the truth. If you've got a mindset that thinks I've got to bend this around and try and find a way around it that I can maybe justify if judge questions it doesn't paint a good look. You should just be, at this point especially, it should just be straight, because the question I've asked doesn't give away a lot of information anyway. It's trivial. So the very fact that you're even willing to do that on a trivial question, it means it does, it talks about their entire character around Gatwick. You can't trust anything they've said about it if they can't even be honest about the most basic questions. I've gone back to the tribunal, I've gone back to the ICO, presented them with the evidence, more photographs, and said, I believe they're acting in bad faith. They haven't answered the question. because I think it puts the reputation of the ICO at risk as well, because you're saying effectively you can't do your job because you've told, you've gone through the process and the police force have been told to just do the, tell the truth, answer the question, and they won't do it. So it's saying you've got no teeth.
Yeah.
Well, we've got our own auditor. Just like DJ and AB, we've got Ian.
Yeah, Ian, the auditor, Ian. Look, I'm going to put a hand. We've gone 24 minutes over time, 25 minutes over time now, and Jack's got to go and get a pizza, and Richard's got to go and have an operation for that blue dot on his head. And normally it's a laser, it's a red dot, isn't it? So at least he's not being sorted. So
Sky on my mind.
Sky on my mind, man. Going once, going twice. Jack, thanks very much for coming and showing.
Thank you for having me on. It was fun, guys.
Oh, hang on. Have you got something you want to show us there?
There's nothing to see here.
You're not allowed to show that. Is that something?
I can't show
and Ian, have you got any printers behind you that you're not supposed to be releasing them to anyone or anything?
I did that last week.
Like you did last week, yeah.
If someone goes back and looks at the start of last week's stream, right, you might have seen me go, I'm under NDA for that one. I forgot to cover it. I'll be back now. Wow. No, we've had the leaked images of the Avatar 2 today. The boxes. It's coming out probably 8th of April. No, DJ, I haven't sent me one, especially after the way I've spoke about them this week. But yeah, Avatar 2, probably about 8th of April. Pricing, not known. Think it's going to be expensive. About $1,300 not in the cheap territory. The world in DJI does continue. Other than that, everything's pretty quiet. Other than that,
don't forget on SGS News there is a link not only to Richard's map, because it's Richard's map, but also to just but also what's your site called? I put it up there, FPV Wiki. UK,
yes, I'm actually trying to repair it right now. So
oh, good. Oh, I managed to break it for you. Excellent.
No, I did that. So yes.
Fair play. So lots of boards on there, lots of very, very useful stuff, and the links there because Ian's been too lazy to tell Google that it exists, but we know it exists. All right, dear viewer, wherever you are in the world, look after yourselves. Have a very safe week. Be interesting to see what happens this week with all these weird DJI stuff. I reckon it's coming out for AUVSI. See you next week, 2100 GMT. Cheers all. Take care. 1 click, 2 clicks.